Good morning. I think you all know by now I'm Cory, but I'll tell you anyway. Thank you all for joining us at chapel this morning. Thank Stan Berry for taking care of the audiovisual and Dwight Berry for playing the piano for us. Our speaker this morning is Martha Cory, and she's a retired minister, and she's a member of the Kokomo Church of the Brethren. She chose the old familiar hymn, Standing on the Promises, and I said, oh yes, we've got that. I looked at all the hymnals here and couldn't find it. Murray found it for us. So anyway, everyone, I suppose, has picked up the copy and we can sing now. Good morning. It's good to be here once again. Been a while since I've been here, but I'm always glad to come. Glad to see all of you here this morning. The little boy asked his elderly grandfather if he had been in the ark with Noah. The grandfather chuckled a little and told his grandson that he had not been in the ark. The confused little grandson asked, "Then why didn't you drown, Grandpa?" And some children who were touring a retirement home were asked by a resident if they had any questions. "Yes," said one little girl. She says, "How old are you?" The lady said, "I'm 98, she replied proudly. Clearly impressed, the child's eyes grew wide with wonder. And then she asked the resident, "Did you start at 1?" My title of the sermon this morning is, if you couldn't guess, Never Too Old to Learn More About God. I've never given a sermon like this, but where I talk about myself. I don't remember ever doing this at Eel River or any place else, but I had some things I wanted to say, but God gets the glory, the glory is not mine. But I want to share with you some of the things that I've learned, and I've decided that you're never too old to learn. The last few years, I think I've learned more with a deeper walk with the Lord than I had in all the years I had been growing up and all the years that I had spent before the last 3.5 or 4 years. I think you've all heard the term, "You can't teach an old dog new tricks." Well, this morning I'm disputing that claim because I think this old dog, as I said, meaning myself, has learned a lot in the last few years. I just want to share it with you to remind you that we can keep learning as we go. And it's not that I didn't know anything before, but I've learned so much more like I said, these last few years, and this had an impact on me. And I think that I can now remember that we're never too old to learn. What you think and what we learn can make a profound impact on our lives, no matter when or what stage of our life we do. The first is the burden of control over our lives is not on us, it's on God. The year 2020 started out with Norm, my husband, who's passed away now, and our ex-son-in-law, who was living with us at the time. And they both were in failing health and had many needs, and which rather was an exhausting task in itself for a year or so there. But 10 days after Norm passed away, my younger sister passed away unexpectedly and very suddenly. And 3 weeks later, I found myself in the hospital for heart surgery. And I was feeling overwhelmed and anxious about life. But it come to me that and I was worried about the future and what was going to happen. And you know how you get when you're going to have surgery and everything's happened. Well, I found out that by the Lord telling me that there was no way that I was going to know my future, that He had the control, that He would know, and He knew what was going to happen and my life was going to be like. Psalms 46, 1-3 says, "God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, through the waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging." And then I'm skipping to verse 10 and 11. It says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress." In the time of conflict with other nations, Israel received his word, be still. Stop striving, God in essence was saying to them. Just follow what I say, and I will fight for you. Israel was not being told to be passive or complacent, but to be actively still, to listen for his voice, to hear him and do what he was telling him to do, to obey God faithfully while yielding control of the situation and leaving the results of their efforts to him. And we're called to do the same. And we can do it because God, the God we trust, is sovereign over everything and over the world. Yet if he lifts his voice and the earth melts, and if he can make wars cease to the ends of the earth, then surely we can trust in the security that he has for us. It's just a matter of letting go and letting God. The second thing I want to share with you is how the Lord works in our daily lives, even when we're not expecting it or when we don't even ask for it. Norm and I had begun the process of downsizing, but had tabled it when his health was failing. So a couple months after he passed away, I got a phone call asking if I was interested in selling the house. And I hadn't even thought about it. There was too many other things going on, and I hadn't even thought about getting back to that. But 3 days later, it was sold. Now what was I going to do? I had no idea because it was all happening so fast. I had no idea. The market was a seller's market at the time. And when I would see a suitable place for sale and call the realtor about it, it was already pending. Houses were selling in 2 to 4 hours at that time. But the Lord wasn't finished with the situation yet. At the last minute, he dropped a condo into my lap. Now, somebody told me that was pretty hard hit, wasn't it, to have a condo in your lap? I said, well, my lap's pretty big, so I guess it held it. But I was only homeless a week before I moved in. So, and with a lot of help, I had lived there for 64 years in the house, and it took a lot of doing to get out of that house. But I had a lot of friends that helped me, and they would say, oh, isn't this pretty? I said, it's yours. I had to get rid of stuff. It's yours, it's yours. But Psalm 40, verse 5 tells us, many, O Lord, my God, are the wonders you have done. The things you planned for us, no one can recount. To you, were I to speak and tell them of them, they would be too many to declare. And 1 Corinthians 2:9, no eye has seen, nor ear has heard, and no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love him. That includes present and future blessings and even the blessing of eternity. In the grand scheme of things, we cannot see a day ahead of us or a month ahead of us or a year ahead of us. For our lives are in God's hands, and he knows far better what we need than we ourselves so many times, and that works out. And I always say, not my will anymore, but God's be done. The third thing I want to share with you has been the hardest to see God's hand in while it was all happening. And things began to happen in which I felt that Satan was attacking and that things weren't going well. And he was after me in every direction. And first thing that happened was that I pulled across the highway in front of a semi. Now, don't ask me why I did that, because I still don't understand it myself. But only by the grace of God did I live through that. I walked away from it, except I broke a vertebrae in my neck. So I wore a brace, big old brace on my neck for 3 months, day and night, 24 hours a day. I wore that for 3 months, and that was a nuisance, mostly because I couldn't drive, but I didn't have a car anyway to drive, so, where was I? I was home. Just a few days after the neck brace, I came down with COVID.
And it lasted about 6 weeks, with including all the stuff that you get with it afterwards. And I couldn't even talk, which is not good for me. I can't stand not to talk. And but so my voice would go in and out. For the 6 weeks, I barely had a voice. And then lately, I've been dealing with some repercussions from the accident that I didn't even think about. So, but then I don't know about you, but when so many bad things happen, just one after another, it's hard to keep our perspective and keep our eyes on the Lord. It takes more effort to see the good things that God has been working in our lives. In the Old Testament, you remember Jacob, and he had faced grave hardships over the years. He believed his son Joseph had been killed by a ferocious animal. And then later his son Simeon was held captive in a foreign land. And in his late years, Jacob was now fearing that his son Benjamin would be taken from him as well. And overcome by all that was happening to him, he cried out, "Everything is against me." And sometimes we feel like that, don't we? But then it wasn't really for him. Nothing was against him. And little did Jacob know that his son Joseph was very much alive and that God was at work behind the scenes to restore the family. If you want to read the story again, it's in Genesis 42. His story illustrates how God can be trusted even when we can't see his hand in the works, in our circumstances. Our vision is limited, but God's is not. And with the Lord as our hope, if God is for us, who is against us? And that comes from Romans 8:31. And 1 Corinthians 13 is, be on guard, stand firm in the faith, be of courage, be strong. And that's the reason I wanted to sing Standing on the Promises. If you read the note or the words as you went, we do have to stand on the promises. But sometimes, like I said, we stand kind of wobbly, don't we, at times? While we don't always experience healing or rescue, God is faithful and always with us. Centuries ago, when captivity in Babylon had weakened the Israelites, Isaiah reminded them that God had upheld them from birth and would continue to care for them. And through Isaiah, God told them, even to your old age and gray hairs, I am He. I am He who will sustain you. And that's the best thing, that we can do, is be sustained by our Lord. God will not abandon us when we need Him the most. He supplies our needs and reminds us He is with us at every point in our lives. The troubles we face may be great, but the Lord is greater. He came to give us life to the full, he says. That's in John 10:10. Now, I'm not talked about myself this morning to gain sympathy and don't want anybody ooh and ah over my troubles, because I know there's many of you that's had more serious troubles than I have had the last few years. So please, I'm just, like I said, I want the glory go to God, not to me. My only goal has been to remind us all that we're never too old to learn what God has in store for us. And He helps us no matter what age we are to keep growing spiritually and mentally, and into the moment we go into eternity. He is never finished with us as long as we are here on earth. So let's all keep on keeping on together. May it be so in your lives, whatever age you are, and whatever time that you're here today. Thank you. Amen.
You want to pick up your cane? Yes.
I don't use it at home, and I forget it every place I go.